So I made myself do some dishes. That's what I chose. Um, I ate something small, but now I have to eat more. So that was my compromise, and my back hurts from standing there, which it shouldn't at all. And I'm just gonna sit here and wait for this feeling to pass. That's my compromise today. Is that? Oh, that's the heck. Oh. I've got my herbal tea that has the immune support herbs that I found, and I'm drinking that. I upgraded my electrolyte mix that I put into my drinking water, and I put in too much potassium. Actually, it was the right kind, the right amount, but my body wasn't used to it, so I ended up being sick all day yesterday. So I fixed that earlier today, so that's a win. It's amazing how quickly things can change, where you can some days do some things and then other days do not much at all. I'm going to rest for a little while and see. I had an English muffin. Hi. And I can't toast it because it scratches in my mouth. There. I'm sure you don't want to see my feet. So, I hate that I have to keep laying down. 222. I wonder if, well, 2 is a sign, is a number of stability. So I'm going to drink this, see if I can make myself eat something else small. You can't go without eating. You need to eat. You know, if I have to go and buy some freaking Ensure, not depressing, I will do it. Here. I will do it. Yep. And I get a call. I'll make an appointment with the immunologist and my prescriber. I'm sleepy. I'm good. I'm just really drained, and I really want to shower. I miss my energy. I want it back. My gut reaction is my knee-jerk reaction is I want to just jump up and start walking laps. But I know that that's not a good idea. So, yeah, I learned about the PACE study and the controversy with chronic fatigue and what actually causes it, and that they actually had evidence in the 1920s, and then these psychiatrists or psychologists, because these particular people weren't thinking about science, they were thinking of the bias to look at the human condition. So they didn't want to believe it was like a real thing, and they thought people were just feeling sorry for themselves, so they created these studies which kept pushing these patients who had a neurological condition that made them worse and worse. And I think a couple people died. And they still then looked at it like, oh, this is a success. It was quite alarming to learn about that, because they ended up putting they kept changing their results. They kept lowering the threshold of what they consider success until the person showed success before they even started. Like one girl started where she was able to walk, and by the time she was done, she was in a wheelchair, and they were telling her, "Yay, success." And no. So I don't want to think the worst and assume the worst. I just found out about this, so I'm going to try to put all of this out of my mind and start treating this like burnout. And even though I do have a diagnosis now and normally I could just like spit out the medical terminology and geek out. Myalgic encephalomyelitis. Myalgic is pain in the tissues, pain in the muscle tissues. I have aches, like my joints. It's okay. I mean, granted, yes, if somebody rests too much, that's not good either. That's not incorrect. That's what makes me concerned. So hopefully I can learn enough that I can find some kind of balance within the two. There's this thing called NEAT, N-E-A-T, non-exertional activity something. So, for instance, me just standing in front of the dishwasher and then slowly putting the dishes in the dishwasher, that even though like I'm trying not to push myself, that's called NEAT. Those are NEAT, N-E-A-T activities. So how the thing that makes this really, well, it's shocking. I mean, because if you learn about autistic burnout and how it can really negatively affect your body, and the same thing, ADHD burnout, I don't think it's that different, and I probably have both. Just from the chronic dumping of cortisol into your body for years, from stress and masking and trying to force yourself to work and live in a way that fits in with the outer world. And you can do that for a certain period of time, and eventually you write checks your body can't cash for long enough periods of time, and it just starts to break down, and you're like, what the F is happening to me? And then you get mad and you push yourself and you make yourself worse. So now I'm at that like, it's very frustrating. I don't like it. I don't like it because I don't like to accept defeat. I don't like to accept. This is where the therapy aspect comes in. Like the serenity prayer and acceptance, because it's like, this is weakness. Ugh, I will overcome. You've got inflammation in your entire body, and now you've totally like jacked up your nervous system, and everything's kind of dysregulated, and your body doesn't have the reserves it used to have. Yeah, you want to keep pushing that, you can. It might not be such a good idea. So it'd be interesting as I go to learn about how much of this is chronic fatigue, which I know they used to not think it was a real thing. And I'm learning that this PACE thing is why. They actually knew it was a real thing, and then some people in the psych field went, nope, these are people who are just afraid to start exercising again, and they just need to do it. And they put them on the strict exercise regimen where they were slowly increasing it. And because they actually had, these people actually had neurological damage in their body, I understand that they meant well, but when you're that blinded, that is a tremendous amount of bias that I think some people died because of this. So you can't just throw facts away. If they already knew in the 1920s that latent viruses that reactivated and suppress your immune system and wreaks havoc on your body, and it's kind of complicated because it's different for each person. allostatic load and all of this stuff. It's complicated because it's not just one thing. It depends on the person, you know. So the human body can only take so much, whether it's stress, you know, wear and tear, and then eventually it starts to crack. And then you get frustrated with it and you keep pushing it more and more because you don't know that you might have some kind of health condition going on, and it just makes it worse. So, yeah. So, I have a referral to go to a neurologist, and I'm really looking forward to that. I have to call, I haven't even, how weird is this? I can talk to you, but I can't think straight enough to pick up the phone and call them and just set an appointment. I know that must sound crazy to some people who might see this and don't know me or don't really understand executive functioning and stuff like that, and how mine is shot right now. I'm not going to waste any more of your time. You guys are lovely, amazing, wonderful people. Don't be distressed because it can't rain all the time. It's always darkest before the dawn. I don't know if that's a song. I'm trying to be positive. And this might be a blessing in disguise because some people get scary sick. And so if this is what I'm dealing with, and I go to a neurologist and they start testing my body for doing more tests to see if I have dormant viruses, you know, what they are, if they are reactivated and suppressing my immune system and keeping me sick like this, then they know what they can do, because there is no one cure treatment for it, because it's more of a syndrome of your body has a tipping point where for a long time you have these stressors on you that maybe other people don't, and eventually it's like that straw that broke the camel's back, and you've been driving a car on fumes for long enough till it breaks down. So are you going to keep forcing it? No, it's because it's going to just blow up. So yeah, the diagnostic part is important. And you know, neurologic and immune issues, like, this can get bad for people who don't know they have it. So this could be good, because if I find out that, I mean, I have the diagnosis now, so that's good, because she did rule out, it's a diagnosis of ruling everything else out. My screening that my doctor did for me already ruled out the usual suspects: thyroid, diabetes, nutrition deficiency, I don't know. She mentioned have a sleep study. I said I already did one, because I did a couple years ago, because I was just fucking exhausted all the time and I had no idea why. Then, you know, when I had this last time, I had a burnout and I had to take time off of work and I got physically sick. The only thing I knew about was learning about neurodivergent burnout and how it affects your health. I am wondering, if you get this sick, if all autistic burnout, if it gets to this point where if you keep pushing it, you end up in a hospital kind of thing. With the amount of people, so these viruses that can become reactivated in chronic fatigue patients, we all have them. Kind of like when people get shingles, that's something we can all relate to. We all know enough about it that everybody's had chickenpox, right? So for those people whose immune system gets compromised enough that that virus that gave you chickenpox as a kid becomes reactivated, everybody has that in their body, but not everybody gets shingles. But we know that it's people who are immunocompromised for different reasons. So this is like one of those things that you have viruses in your body. Well, that's the usual culprits are these viruses, because they can actually suppress your immune system a lot more than people think they can. And I already have 2 health situations that can do that. And so, yeah, I do have the Epstein-Barr virus. And this, I started saying in my other video that the screening that I had only tests two different kinds of antibodies. One that showed you just came in contact with it, so that was negative. And then one that are the memory ones that I kind of started talking, and I had to stop my recording because somebody came home and I was like talking to them, or somebody came down. So I didn't get to finish that. So the screening I had ruled out everything else pretty much. And from me talking to her about how far back it goes, and then things from me growing up always being sick when other people weren't, and having strep throat multiple times every single winter in my like childhood and teens. I had to fight to get my tonsils removed. They didn't want to do it because they didn't do it anymore in the 90s. I had to fight to get that, but I got it, and I stopped. It was like a miracle. I stopped getting the strep throat and everything, and I thought that was it. I didn't know, like, because the coup de grace when I had strep and mono at the same time. It was horrible. I felt like my throat was going to close up and I wasn't going to be able to breathe. I didn't know that Epstein-Barr, which I've heard of being associated with immune issues, I didn't know it was the same thing as mono. But you used to think of mono as like the kissing disease. You get it as a teenager, and it just feels like a really bad strep throat, and you're just freaking exhausted for weeks, maybe more than a month, and then you just think, I'm never going to get it again. But that's one of the viruses that is associated with chronic fatigue, and I have that. And I have two other things that don't help, that also, when my immune system's suppressed, they actively suppress my immune system more. So, and I also found out that if you're somebody who has a metals allergy, you might be a little bit more susceptible to some of these things. So as I learn more, I'll share it. I mean, when I started this channel, I was just going to talk about ADHD. Because I was tired of struggling and feeling embarrassed. As a middle-aged woman, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done being embarrassed. You know, there's too many people struggling with this, and that's what makes it harder. If you have a disability, and it is classified as a disability if it impairs your regular life, like being able to hold a job, and some of the other things. We can talk about that soon for people who are newer here. It can be for some people. I know that we have minimized it in our culture to just being distracted, but that's not what it is. It's a executive functioning disorder. So yeah, today's just like a low energy day, and I'm just going to try to pace myself and see if I can do all three things. I was thinking I was going to have to choose between spoon theory. Like, I have a very little bit amount of energy. I didn't know how I was going to stand there and do the dishes. And I don't know why, because I mean, other than this, I feel like I should be healthy. I'm actually surprised, given all of this, that I didn't end up having long COVID when I did get COVID. And I think because I always had all of the COVID vaccines, I'm sure that helped. In my case, I didn't have any bad reactions to the vaccine. I know there's controversy with that, and some people may have had reactions. I'm not knowledgeable enough to go into that. But yeah, there's really no cure, because it's basically like your immune system and your nervous system got wrecked, and you kind of have to take it easy until your body heals itself. And I don't really know more, but it's interesting because it's the same thing for autistic and neurodivergent burnout, so, which is also very bad for your body. I mean, this isn't burnout like career burnout the average person has, that you can just take a leave of absence for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and you'll be fine again. This is not that. This is different. This is a health problem. And for some people, it can take months, if not years, to heal. And that's from autistic burnout. That's from neurodivergent burnout. This one's worse than before. Last time I rested, I know the whole first week I was straight up in bed. But then I was slowly getting better. And even though, like, when I'm filming, I'm sitting down here and I'm talking like normal, as soon as I turn this off, I'm going back into withdrawal mode and sleeping. So I think I just stressed my body out with changing my electrolyte balance because I was trying to do this ideal. I guess you're supposed to do a 3-to-1 ratio because if you have too much sodium, it flushes out the potassium. So I guess the ideal golden ratio is to have 3 times potassium, 1 time sodium. And I already have been using a mix that was half and half that I've been putting into my drinking water as electrolyte drinks. This is not the same as picking up like a Gatorade electrolyte drink because that is sodium heavy and that's meant for working out. But if you're trying to balance your electrolytes as postmenopausal woman who can't really, you drinking water and you don't have the estrogen to help you hold on to it in your tissues anymore, and you want to put some electrolytes in your water, if you just use something that has all that sodium, it will flush your potassium out. And within a few days of using it, I ended up having an electrolyte imbalance where I was having heart palpitations, and it wasn't good. So that was very confusing because I'm like, what? I'm putting salt in my water. And I didn't remember all of this because nursing school was like a decade ago and it just like fell out of my brain. It's like basic stuff I should have known but didn't remember because I just thought I get enough potassium in my food. I didn't think I would have to worry about it. But yeah, so sodium potassium works like a seesaw. If you have more sodium, it will flush out your potassium. If you have more potassium, it will flush out some of your sodium. You want it supposed to be certain balance. And I don't know why it's 3 parts sodium anyway. So I ran out of my mix and I had my fiance buy some for me. And I made the new one 3-to-1 instead of 1-to-1, half potassium and half sodium. And I didn't realize just changing it would put such a stress on my body. And then yesterday I was like, I couldn't move. I felt like I was gonna throw. I couldn't eat food. It really made me nauseous. And then I asked Gemini, I'm like, if you change your electrolyte balance to have more potassium, is it going to make you nauseous? And he's like, well, yes. I'm like, great. At least now that I'm learning about chronic fatigue, I was like getting myself all scared. This will make you feel like you're dying. Because you start learning about something new and they show you the worst. These people who are just like, literally look like they're in a coma. It's awful. And they're hooked up to machines and shit. And so that wasn't helpful for me. Like a couple of weeks ago, I put a little bit too much garlic in my food and it triggered a crash. And I had a vasovagal reaction where I had to run to the bathroom and I wasn't just wanting to throw up. It was like everything, and I ended up like laying on the floor and not really being able to move. And my cat found me. And I couldn't even tell her. I could kind of vaguely know that she was trying to get in the toilet, and I couldn't move to stop her. That was scary. And so yeah, she was worried about me, and she's biting my leg. So yeah, that's not happening again. So don't use too much garlic. So I guess these little scary reactions to things are showing that my balance is probably on the more delicate side than I would like to think. So I'm trying to keep everything copacetic now. I'm like scared. I'm like, Jesus, sorry for swearing. Sorry, God. And here I am like trying to do all the right things. Every time I eat, I'm like using Gemini. I'm like, I'm going to start grazing Gemini. Can you keep track of my carbs, on my macros? And so because I can't think straight to eat. So he goes, okay. And I'll say, this is this time, and this is meal number this. And I say, okay, I'm eating this now. And I tell him the brand and the item and everything, and he goes and calculates it. And I'm like, I'm putting this kind of butter on it, and I'm putting this kind of sugar on it. Okay, I'm having this now. And I'll just keep doing, I'll just grab whatever. So I can't think. So I just keep eating until I meet my macros. It's bullshit. So yeah, I'm hoping that I can rest this week and get more stable by next week, because I just want to feel normal again. I just don't know when this happened and how I got to this point. Um, I want to tough it out, but apparently that's not what you do. You go easy on it, which is frustrating. Anyway, I didn't know if any of you guys have ME slash chronic fatigue syndrome, which apparently isn't in people's head. It's a real thing. And so for you to have it, you have to rule out, they have to rule out a bunch of stuff. It's a diagnosis of ruling out things first before they, because there's no like blood test or test to say, hey, your immune system's kind of starting to shut down, your nervous system's kind of on the fritz. Yeah, there's nothing to do that. So, and because it can be caused from different viruses and other health situations depending on the person, it's a combination of things that has built up to the point that it exceeds the body's different stressors on the body that have exceeded the body's ability to cope. And you exceed running out of reserves, and you have pushed it into bad territory. And so you can't just rest and make it better. Now you have a health condition because you've damaged your body. So it'd be interesting. I mean, on the plus side, some of the things I have people do to treat it are things that I'm trying to do already, so that's good. And even eating a huge meal sometimes can put stress on your body, which is kind of annoying. Not that I could really eat that much anyway. I don't want to do all of this. I want to go back to work. You know, I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm going to call either this afternoon or tomorrow and make an appointment for the immunologist, I forget. They do both. He does both. He does immunology, allergies. They check for chronic viruses. They check if you have, it could be your body's very reactive and on fire because it's allergic to things that you don't realize. It's all things that they can start to test for to see what your unique situation is. So I really look forward to having more answers, you know. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna rest this week and hopefully feel a little bit whatever normal is. And I love you guys. I won't give up if you don't give up. And I can't think of anything else to say. Don't worry, I am going to doctors and we're going to figure it out. I love you guys. I hope you're doing well. Bye.